This is the Tom Anderson Show, broadcasting live from the KVNT studios, 7 to 9 a.m., Monday through Friday.
Governor Scott Walker of Wisconsin has taken the lead of an organization that is really making an impact across the nation. He'll get into how many universities and college campuses they've penetrated, how many more yet to come. He was governor of the great state of Wisconsin from 2011 to 2019. And you betcha I'm going to ask him about running for president. He's one of my favorite governors. My family's from Minnesota, came through Wisconsin from Europe, from Norway back in the 1800s. So there's a kindred spirit, although I'm sure he's a Green Bay Packers fan and I'm, of course, a Vikings fan. Governor Scott Walker, how are you today?
Hey, I'm great to be with you. Although the common denominator is we hate the Bears, so that's right.
That's right. You said it, Gov. Okay, first, have you ever been to Alaska? We need to get you up here and go salmon fishing or halibut fishing or both.
I've been up to Anchorage, but in fact, I'm going to be up there next year for a cruise and spend some time up there. So I'd be glad to be back.
Fantastic. Well, let's talk about your transition from governor, and one of the more notable ones for how hard you worked and how great you made Wisconsin even better than you got it. Let's look at the national trend here with campuses and schools and our education systems, curriculums changing. So many problems we see in anybody, even moderate to conservative, patriot, pro-military, feels a frustration. I certainly do, and we're seeing it, believe it or not, even in Alaska. What made you decide to take the helm at Young America's Foundation?
Well, as you noted, I've been through some pretty big fights. I mean, years ago, they tried to cancel me first by trying to intimidate us with 100,000 protesters who occupied our state capitol and then tried to recall me. We didn't back down, and we not only prevailed in the policy battles where our reforms are still intact today, we also ultimately won in terms of the recall. And on a different scale, what we see is the same concept, is our college campuses, but increasingly in our schools, in our culture, even in our communications when it comes to big tech. The radicals are trying to cancel us out because they know that common sense conservative reforms work, and they don't want to particularly have access to young people in sharing the successes of those reforms versus the failures in communist and now socialist countries around the world. So the long game at Young America's Foundation is something we are initiating to try and counter really decades of work on the left. It's not going to happen overnight, but we've got to engage in the battles of today, but have a long game plan to win the war for the heart and soul of our great republic.
And that is the plan, folks, that Governor Walker is leading and presenting to Americans, from Hawaii and Alaska to the continental U.S. When someone looks at academia, Governor, and they look at like the university system, it's clear that there's a liberal left-leaning agenda so often. But what I like about you've said, no, let's go earlier. And some have said, you mean high school? And you're like, no, earlier. And they're like, you mean middle school? And you're like, I even think we can touch in elementary schools, maybe not kindergarten, but at some level, you and I are the same age. I remember the PBS, the public broadcasting, I'm Just a Bill on Capitol Hill, very thoughtful, pro-government. You and I looked you up, are almost literally the same age, but born a couple months apart. And so you would have been of the same era. It's not like that anymore. So is that the plan, to go back all the way, elementary, middle, high school, then college?
Yeah, we got to fight every single battle. We can't pick and choose. We got to be involved in all those battles if we're going to win the long-term war to really restore our country. And I'll give you an example why. So back in February, we have this tip line to get at yf.org. You can get all sorts of information. If you're a student listener, yf.org/longgame, you can get our plan. We'll mail it to you. But we have this tip line. We normally get, all sorts of wild stories about radical professors and sadly segregation that we see in many of the dorms and other things that you thought were long gone. But this particular tip came from Iowa State, not about the school campus, but about the local school district. And they said that during Black History Month, that district government-run district, partnered with BLM, the organization, to create a week of action. And they started as early as preschool and kindergarten with curriculum all the way through 12th grade. The curriculum for the little kids was coloring pages with characters who were transgender, telling them they could pick whether they wanted to be a boy or a girl or somewhere in between. That's how far the left has gone to indoctrinate young people. That has no place in school, period, but particularly not in those early ages. And we see increasingly not just things like that, but the 1619 Project, other things that are teaching children to hate America. We believe we can counter that with part of our long game plan is giving parents, particularly in elementary school parents, the tools and materials they need to talk about why America is great, why our founders were profound, why our country is based on Judeo-Christian values. Those are the things that are important, not just for the moment, but for the long game going forward.
And Plainfield, weren't you raised in Iowa?
Yeah, I was born in Colorado Springs, lived for about 7 years in Plainfield, Iowa, town about 450, where the school was literally the same building from kindergarten through 12th grade, not the same classroom, but
Sure.
the same building. My mom actually was in a single one-room school on a farm growing up, but I grew up in Plainfield in third grade, went to Delavan, Wisconsin, where I went through high school and certainly had major influence not only in school, but with the American Legion and programs they put me through for Boys State and Boys Nation. So I know on a personal level what kind of impact you can have at a young age. I know I saw that my kids, and now I see that my nieces, and I know we've got, for you and I, Reagan was that spark.
Of course.
Opened our eyes not just to being conservative, but being an optimist. And that's why I believe we can do the same thing for young people all across the country, but we've got to cut through and reach them, which is why the left's trying to cancel us.
We're talking with Governor Scott Walker. He is the president of Young America's Foundation, and they've announced what he calls a bold new action plan, the long game, and you can get it. We'll post the link. We're going to make a YouTube video out of this, and of course on podcast and all the mediums through which you can connect with us and with Governor Walker. And I would recommend donating, and we'll get into how to do that and support, because they have to be funded by Americans to really blossom and continue the momentum. Okay, so we look at what happened disgracefully in Georgia. By the way, quick story. I lost a friendship. I'm not going to say whom. Way back when, I've been a Republican all my life, state legislator, on and on, very pro like yourself. And I'll never forget, I'll just say his first name, Tom. I remember he was packing up and heading out of state from Alaska. And I said, "Where are you going, bro?" And he said, "I'm going to help the recall against Governor Walker." And I said, the outstanding governor in Wisconsin? I said, "Are you kidding? We got in a fight, not physical, I lost a friendship." I couldn't believe it. And that's the type of crap that goes on in America across the nation. I'm not so sad about Newsom in California. That one's justifiable. But when you look at governors, the Abbotts and the DeSantis, and I know you've spoken about like Haley, your friends, and of course Pence and Nome near you in South Dakota, do you see hope on the horizon with the next presidential run and with some of our, maybe Kelly, maybe Warnock, getting rid of them in Arizona and Georgia, kind of in concert with your narrative?
Well, I think, again, if we're part of the reason why people say, why would you go from being in elected office, doing all these things, to working with young people? I said, well, the two are very clearly connected. It's why the left has been at this for decades. They understand if you stop the flow of thought to young people, if you only give them one side of the equation, over time, no matter how smart, no matter how educated they are, if all they hear is one side, that's the way they're going to vote. We believe you level the playing field, you fight the free speech battles, you get the word out, and then you don't back down. Not only does it persuade young people, but then they're going to make better decisions going forward. And I firmly believe in battleground states like the one I live in, if we don't make change with this next generation, it's going to be years, if not decades, before any conservative wins a statewide election. So it is critically important for the future of this country for us to have that kind of exposure. And per your point about the names you mentioned, Ron DeSantis, it's no surprise why CBS did that hatchet job on them. It's no surprise why, even though Colorado and Wisconsin both have more aggressive election laws, voter ID requirement, and laws that have less time for early voting than Georgia does. The difference, of course, is Colorado, where they moved the All-Star game, and Wisconsin, where the National Democrats held their, they Milwaukee as their convention site last year. Never mind the fact that the lies. Don't confuse them with the facts. The lies just were perpetuated from Stacey Abrams and Joe Biden. It is going to hurt people in Atlanta because of that. We need to stand up for people like Governor Kemp, Governor DeSantis, Governor Abbott, and others who are getting attacked for doing the right thing in their states. And I believe people will see through that. I believe, in the end, facts are more important than just feelings. You've got to tell it with passion, but we've got to have the truth on our side, and we do.
Absolutely. Governor Walker, thank you for your time. We're going to make sure people contribute and support your organization. Keep up the fight, my friend.
Thank you. Great to be with you. Keep fighting for freedom.
Absolutely. That's Governor Scott Walker right here on the Tom Anderson Show.